Another issue is the one of commercial sex. And there are a number of women and children, especially, who are exploited in commercial sex every year. And this is not just limited to prostitution that takes place on the street, but it really goes into brothels and in suburban neighborhoods, and it goes into the forms of commercial sex that we might see more often, like escort agencies and gentlemen's clubs and pornography and erotic performances. So I think that a big concern that a lot of folks have is that when we use those services, we demand more commercial sex. And the traffickers are willing to meet that demand by trafficking more women and girls and enslaving them in those commercial sex industries. So there's been a big movement in the anti-trafficking movement to end demand specifically. And a lot of faith-based organizations have really been behind that, encouraging people not to demand commercial sex, not to buy commercial sex in any of its forms, and thus reduce the demand that is pushing traffickers to traffic more women and children.
Mm-hmm. Now,
does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think those are two great areas of concern and probably things that I've been made most aware of. When you mentioned the products and that no product has been tainted, do you think that people do they choose to remain ignorant, or is it just a state of apathy? I mean, it seems like I think there is a change happening, that some people are becoming aware and they are actually being conscious about what they're shopping for and what they're buying. But like, I go to my grocery store here in the neighborhood, and there's not a single fair trade product in the store. And definitely there has to be some demand. There has to be people made aware. But do you think that some of it's just people either choosing to be ignorant, or are we just apathetic because we realize, well, everything's tainted, and so there's no perfect product out there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I don't think that anybody supports slavery. In my years of doing this work, I have never met a single person who says, I think that it's fine if the stuff I use was made by slaves, or even anyone who says, I don't care if the stuff I use is made by slaves. I think the more common response is yours, which is, look, I know that this happens, and I don't want to be a party to it. I don't want to be demanding consumer goods that are made by slaves, but I have to wear clothes and I have to eat food. Mm-hmm. We can't run around naked and hungry all the time. So what do? A lot of communities, you're right, don't have a lot of options in terms of fair trade items at the grocery store. And I think that the answer to that is twofold. One is the power of the internet, which I very much believe in. Now, I live in Washington, D.C., which is a sizable city, but I've lived in much more rural and isolated places in my life. And I've really been able to keep up buying a lot of fair trade and sustainable goods through using the internet. Mm-hmm. You'll be surprised if you Google different stuff that's out there. They make fair trade underwear. Mm-hmm. They make all sorts of fair trade foods and food items. They make whole lines of fair trade clothing and bags and jewelry. So while it might be difficult to switch at this point to a lifestyle that's entirely fair trade, I think that you can make a lot of really good steps through using websites that sell fair trade items.